Hello, everyone. Welcome. And to today's talk for World Restart a Heart Day. Today is all about cardiac arrest awareness and how to help prevent and treat sudden cardiac arrest with either immediate CPR or AED. We are super excited to be having Hannah from HeartCharged today to be talking about her experience with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a very common genetic heart condition that is one of the top causes of sudden cardiac arrest. So we are super excited to be hearing about her story, and hopefully help educate you guys. And so how about we all start by commenting what your relation is to this topic, whether you know someone who's had a sudden cardiac arrest, whether you know someone who has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, perhaps you have it, perhaps you just are wanting to learn how to best respond in a situation where someone is just unconscious and not responding. So we're super excited for today's topic. So for just an intro, hello, my name is Davis. I am from Cardiovisual. We are a patient education platform providing a whole bunch of educational videos on our website, heart.medicalvisual.com. This is a free resource to help provide patients free education that will help better improve their outcomes. And we are joined with Hannah from HeartCharged. Hannah is a sudden cardiac, there she is, hello. And also happy birthday. We're super excited that you're spending today's day celebrating life with us. So Hannah is a sudden cardiac arrest survivor. She has a condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, which is actually the most common genetic heart condition. It affects 1 in 500 Americans. It is also an important cause of sudden cardiac death among young athletes because it's just not screened for as much. So we're going to be talking about that. And so she actually has an ICD, which is an internal defibrillator, which has shocked her multiple times, right? Yeah, saving her from sudden cardiac arrest. So we're also going to be discussing that. Hannah is the one half of the nonprofit HeartCharged, an advocacy group all about helping people stay heart charged. And so they do amazing work, so make sure to check out their page. Hannah is also a filmmaker and the creative director of HeartCharged. Her content is innovative, educational, and interesting, and she's bringing the cardiac world to an everyday audience. So thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us today.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this will be a great topic. So I've kind of mentioned hypertrophic cardiomyopathy a few times. So you have this condition as well as your other half as well, right?
Yeah, we both have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, since it's a bit of a mouthful. And yeah, so it's in most cases it's genetic, hence why me and my sister both have it. It's presented a little bit differently, but the basis of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is it's a heart condition in which the left ventricle of your heart is too thick. And because it's too thick, it becomes more stiff, it obstructs blood flow, and it makes it harder for your heart to pump, and it kind of causes your heart to beat erratically, going into, ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, and that's why it would then lead into you going into sudden cardiac arrest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you said you and your sister have it, but does this affect anyone else in your family?
It does. So thank goodness, my mom's sister, my aunt, got diagnosed about like a little over 11 years ago, and that's kind of how we ended up getting checked out, because we never thought or would think that we had heart problems. But once that was, entered into the family, a genetic heart condition, we obviously wanted to go get checked and see if we had it. And during me finding out, and my sister, my mom also found out that she had it, and then that obviously kind of opened up, like, okay, yeah, so who had the gene and how did it get passed down? But yeah, and then actually through genetic testing, 2 of my other brothers have the gene. It's not as severe, but it's helpful to have genetic testing, because especially when you have your own children, since it's a 50% chance to pass down that gene, it makes you a little bit more aware, and you can be on top and be proactive of continually checking your heart every year or two, just to make sure that you're good, because you never know, where this condition could pop up in your life, especially if you're already carrying the gene. So it's just a good way to kind of be knowledgeable and know everything that could happen with your family and yourself.
Yes, knowing your family history is just so important. I mean, for specifically HCM, but also, I mean, any condition, right? A lot of things are passed down. So just being aware and proactive with this can really help you in the long run. So I guess, so what was the experience like? Tell me, easy just finding out that about like just checking your heart? Like I've had some, I think just tests done before going into sports. It was pretty simple. What was your experience like?
Yeah, the the test and all that was super simple. What the diagnosis, that's what was
Yeah.
life changing. But no, so it ended up being which you would obviously want to see like a cardiologist, somebody who specifies in the heart. Because my pediatrician kind of dismissed and just listened with the stethoscope. You cannot detect HCM by just listening to your heart unless you're super duper trained cardiologist who could tell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the importance of going to a specialist. But once there, you do an EKG or ECG, depending on where you live in the world. But it's an electrocardiogram, basically putting stickers on, non-invasive, just to get your heartbeat. And in that test, usually you can detect a lot of issues, cardiomyopathies. And then it's the echocardiogram or the ultrasound, where they can really go in and see the images of your heart and measure the thickness, is where they would be able to detect or diagnose HCM. And MRI is if they really wanted a more specific measurement, but those two simple tests that you could do in office when you go in to get checked are what could help diagnose you with HCM specifically.
Yes, thank you for giving us an overview of all that. So yes, if there's any doubt at all of having it, it's super easy to try to find out. It's just a matter of making an appointment with a cardiologist. So leading up to your diagnosis, did you experience any symptoms at all, or you or your sister of HCM?
We did. I mean, now looking back at it, there was a lot more symptoms that we had obviously um, dismissed as being. So we both were dancers. I was an athlete. I was playing basketball, softball. Like we were super active family, always doing exercise, always running around. But the symptom that I mostly told my pediatrician about was fainting, because I had had a few episodes. Was dismissed and told that's normal for girls, or you just need to drink more electrolytes and different things. So it was, you're like, okay. And then obviously looking it up, especially 11 years ago, I kept saying like, oh, HCM is asymptomatic, there's no things. First one is death is a symptom. You're kind of like, okay. That's scary, and it's sad because a lot of people did end up finding out a heart condition after an autopsy. But then looking at it, you're like, no, wait, there are more signs, and talking to people, and then looking back at mine, like, wait, no, I did have chest pain. I had tightness of chest. Oh, I was feeling lightheaded. Oh my goodness, I was like had fast or irregular heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because obviously being genetic and you get used to it, right? You're like, oh, like this always happens. And I think that's another kind of like warning sign to look at, is like comparing yourself to someone your age, and like being open and discussing, hey, are you guys having super hard, or like what is too fast and stuff. Because yeah, when we were looking back, we're like, wait, we had like literally 7 out of the 7 warning signs. So it's like educating yourself, but also knowing like, hey, it's okay like to check it if you feel off. Like that's what doctors are there for, to make sure that you're at ease of like, oh no, that's not something to worry about, or oh, hey, that happens. But yeah, like, and especially with or without exercise, these warning signs are like definitely to look at. Like I remember my dad he was like, oh yeah, I remember you'd come home. Like I would play a full-on basketball game, then go to dance rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
And obviously I'm telling this to my doctor who's diagnosed me, and that's why she probably said, like, I'm surprised you haven't dropped dead yet, because of how active I was and how thick my heart was. But of course I'm like, no, I'm pushing through. I'm not feeling it. I wasn't even drinking water sometimes during the games. You know, I was like in ignorant bliss doing it. And then I remember my dad was like, oh yeah, I remember you'd come home and you'd be like just sitting there like, oh yeah, no, my heart's beating really fast, and you know, I'm just like chilling and, you know, thinking, oh, that's normal because I just did all that exercise, right? Like I'm just resting right now, I'm taking a break. But clearly there was something more. So I'm extremely grateful for knowing my own family history, and also for my mom not just accepting the pediatrician's answer and going to see a pediatric cardiologist and getting a diagnosis, so that I could still be here today.
Yeah, no, that's super important, especially, I mean, if you think anything's wrong, or if you're a parent and know there's something wrong with your child, advocating for that, and even if they may dismiss certain things, like fainting with exercise is a very big symptom of this. So definitely, if that is happening to you or someone you know, or perhaps your child, it is something that you should get checked out and try to find the reasoning behind it, because it could be an underlying issue that you weren't aware of before. So after this diagnosis, then you ended up getting an ICD, so an internal defibrillator. What was that process? What led to you deciding to get that? And what were important decisions for you and your family with deciding to get an ICD?
Yeah, so with the ICD, so when I first got diagnosed, my thickness was like, usually the measurements are either millimeters or centimeters. So like normal is like 11 millimeters. Mine was like 22 when I got diagnosed. So they were obviously like, yeah, you got HCM. That's like double the amount of normal. And then a year later, I go in for my yearly checkup, and they do another echocardiogram, and they see that it's gone to like 28.
Oh,
That it's like substantially grew. And so they're like, okay, we need to get an MRI to get more specific things. And they pretty much present the idea of like, hey, when you hit a certain thickness, and since you've already had episodes through like having a heart monitor that we've seen that you've had like VTAC and stuff and arrhythmias, if it hits this measurement, you're pretty much like qualified to have an implanted cardioverter defibrillator. And so I went in. There was some miss because I was seeing two doctors at the time, and they didn't communicate who was telling me. So I waited a little bit longer than normal. I should have had. And I got the call that they said, yeah, your thickness is, you know, it qualifies, and we want to get as soon as possible, get an ICD. So then, of course, I met with an electrophysiologist, who's somebody who's over those devices. I didn't really have much of a buy-in of like which brand or whatever. They're pretty much like, we're going to put this device in you. It's this size. They said it was a little bit smaller than it actually was. But they're like, yeah, we're going to put this in. This is the surgeon who's going to do it. And for me and my family, with already being presented like, hey, like my cardiologist already saying like, I'm surprised you haven't dropped dead yet. And just seeing like, you know, how severe I had it, and them saying like, hey, this is like, this could save your life. You know, like this is, we put these in it. And I very much felt like, no, yeah, let's do it. Like there wasn't any like, oh, how big is the scar going to be? Like all that stuff, you know, like I really was just like, no, I would feel so much better having this device, because I felt like I was walking on eggshells, because they're telling me, okay, don't do anything that will get your heart rate up. Don't even watch scary movies. You know, I found out through my heart monitor that when like I go like flights of stairs, my heart is already beating. So like I was, you know, I'm a teenager. So I'm like, okay, I can't really like have too much fun. So I felt like, well, if I had my own device, I wouldn't have to rely on somebody, you know, knowing where the AED is or how to use it. At my school, they told me only one person knew how to use the AED, the external defibrillator. So I was like, okay, my life relies on him when I'm at school, and he's not even here all the time. So I just felt like, oh, if I had my own one, I felt like I could live my life a little bit more freer. So it was a very like quick decision, like on me and my family's part, which we're grateful, because then obviously after we got it, and then when we saw the bill come in and the out of pocket that we had to pay, I think if we were presented with that, it would have been a little bit more like, okay, how are we, paying that off? So I think it weirdly worked out of like, okay, yeah, get the bill at the end. Um, and knowing all of it. And I'm extremely grateful because 6 months after I got it implanted, it did its job and it literally saved my life when I went into cardiac arrest in my sleep, which a week from today will be 9 years since it saved my life. So it's crazy to think about that, especially like just being a 17-year-old, not knowing, like, of course, when you get an ICD, you're like, if it goes off, it's going to feel this and that. And obviously, I was like unconscious, so I didn't feel the two shocks that needed it. But even my electrophysiologist was like, thank God. When I went in for that appointment, because she was like, this is why we put them in. And then it makes me think, like, right, if I had waited even longer to make that decision, how things could have been so differently. So I'm very grateful for my ICD. We definitely have a bond, even though it's, an inanimate object, a bond that, cannot be explained. But yeah, extremely, extremely grateful for it, for that ICD.
Yeah, no, that's great that, I mean, you were able to, one, identify the problem early on and get a solution to prevent sudden cardiac arrest. Because unfortunately, as it stands, so many people have cardiac arrest today, and the survival rate is around 9%. And I know that you and your sister have talked about that this can be higher. So want to kind of turn the conversation to, for others who we may see that have a sudden cardiac arrest, what are the symptoms and how do we then immediately treat it? So talk about that a little.
Yeah, the symptoms, I think it's a little bit crazy because with sudden cardiac arrest, it can happen to any age, anytime, anywhere. It doesn't discriminate like that. It's just like, oh, okay, you're sleeping, you're at a concert, you're at a restaurant. And it happens a lot faster than a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And they're two very different things. Of course, a heart attack could lead to cardiac arrest, but you're like instantly unconscious and the person is non-responsive, and that immediately will tell you that someone is going into cardiac arrest. Sometimes they might be like gagging, where their body's like, we're not going to get air anymore, and they're going to be like gurgling air almost. They may seize. They might have, like, right, they were doing something, whether on the field or not, or all of a sudden they feel like their heart beating fast. But because it happens so quick, it's not like a heart attack where you're like, wait, I'm feeling all of these symptoms. So your friend or person may not be able to give you the lay down that, like, hey, I'm about to go into cardiac arrest right now, because it happens so fast. And that's why it's so important that everybody is trained in life-saving skills, such as using an AED and knowing CPR, because CPR can obviously help us buy time as we wait for the professionals. But for us, especially on the end of cardiac arrest, it's the AED is what you need a shock to get your heart beating back to normal, especially if you have a shockable rhythm in your cardiac arrest. And that's like the biggest thing that we push is know where your AED is, know that you can use it, that you don't have to be a professional to use this device. It's made for, like, we train 4-year-olds on how to use an AED. Like, anybody could learn how to do it. And it's so important because like, when something happens, you want to know that you're the most prepared. And like, that's why we are big on pushing it in schools. Like, yeah, imagine learning that skill that you would probably need to learn, because there's some stuff you learn in school that you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to use this calculus ever again. But knowing like an AED, and of course, because we have cardiomyopathies or heart conditions, there's warning signs in those, because having a cardiomyopathy can lead you to having cardiac arrest. Those symptoms that we discussed before of, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, arrhythmias, dizziness, lightheadedness, fainting. They can kind of give you, you know, a bit of warning of, oh, hey, you're having that or something's up. But because a cardiac arrest is basically your heart starts beating like too fast, or, you know, then starts beating improperly, it's usually those arrhythmias, and not everybody is kind of in tune with their body to know, like, this is what an arrhythmia, you know, feels like, and I'm having, and how do I express that to you? But obviously when you see somebody, you know, faint and they're non-responsive, that's when you have to immediately start acting fast and immediately call 911, you know, start CPR, go find that AED, and give them the best thing, because it's crazy if everybody knew it, if everybody did it, our survival rate could be so much better. It could be an actual like passing rate, you know. 9% is horrible. If you got that on a test, you're like, girl, did you even study? That's did you even fill out the test, you know? And so it's just like for our end on HeartCharged, and like as a filmmaker making this, where people kind of get over the stigma that this is too hard, or oh my gosh, this is like gonna hurt me, is gonna hurt them, like getting over all those stigmas and showing people that no, this is something everyone can learn and how to do. And we offer free CPR and AED training courses because we believe, like, hey, knowledge is power. Why should that money prevent you from learning this skill so that you're more prepared? Because a lot of the times you're doing these things on somebody that you know. And that's, I think that's where you don't want to regret that you didn't know what to do, or, you know, like if it happens to your loved one, that you're the most prepared and that you can help them the best.
Yeah, no, the work that you and Bethany on your page are doing is just amazing. I think you've done music videos, you've done just fun little films to really break this stigma and help inform people. And that's what today is about. Restart a Heart Day is about knowing that you yourself can perform CPR, and AEDs, they talk to you. They tell you what you're supposed to be doing to help save a life. And you also do, I mean, amazing work too with also breaking the stigma of doing these life-saving treatments on women. So too, like, I mean, women's survival rate, I believe, is even lower than men's. So really trying to just inform people. Us on Cardiovisual, we just posted a short 60-second video that just tells you the steps of performing CPR. We've been doing posts with HeartCharged this whole month about sudden cardiac arrest symptoms to help screen for them, as well as underlying conditions that may lead to it, and also eventually treatment if it does end up leading to sudden cardiac arrest. So make sure to check all of those out. So Hannah, are there any other points that you want people to walk away from this talk with? And then we'll get into a little Q&A with the audience. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them now.
No, I think just like sharing, I think what's important, right, is like there's these great, you know, like you guys are cardiovisual, that's why we wanted to team up with you, especially coming from like the more like medical aspects, and us kind of being like professional patients, and, you know, and like the everyday person of how to talk. It's just like share this information with your friends, share these videos. The more people know, the better. And the fact is, like, hey, that you could watch this and feel a little bit more prepared. Maybe you're not at the stage that you think you need to go take the 3-hour, you know, like training class or something, but at least sharing these videos so you're a little bit more aware and the knowledge is there. And so share that with other people, because that's the best way for everybody to kind of be on the same page and know, like, hey, this is what an AD is. Hey, where is your one? Like, I get so many people who worked on that music video with me, or that were like, that we did training, that they're like, I look for the AED everywhere I go, and I think of you guys. Or, you know, like, so it's crazy, just like, right, just watching a fun little music video can inform you a lot more than like before. So yeah, just share that content, and become informed, and feel prepared to do something in an emergency. And if you are overwhelmed, because we know you never know how you're going to act in that scenario, if all you can do is call 911, that's great too. That's important. That's a vital step. So don't feel like you're not capable enough of helping save someone's life, because you are.
And that's a great closing point, I want to now open it up to the audience if we have any questions. I have seen some float by as we've been discussing. One, I know someone just wanted us to make it clear that an ICD is a prevention measure, not a treatment. The treatment for cardiac arrest would be CPR and an AED. And the ICD is, you have to meet certain criteria before that is being considered. So someone mentions early screening should be talked about. We mentioned that a little bit. If you are experiencing any symptoms of shortness of breath, fainting while exercising, different arrhythmias, your heart is beating super fast, you should get that checked out for sure.
Yeah. And we're really big on pushing that because, like, when I think it was a heart screening that saved my life, knowing, right, going there, my cardiologist was like, oh, something's up, let's get further testing. And we were pushing we live in Miami. Miami-Dade County is the third largest school district county in the US. And we push because, right, when I go to school, I have to get, you know, like my eye exam, I have to get sometimes scoliosis testing. Why are we not having a screening for the most vital organ in your body? Because if that ain't working properly, some, you know, things can happen. And so we push to get especially free screenings for all students, not just athletes, and make it, you know, it's kind of been hard to push for mandatory because you think like, wow, this is just a screening, but especially like 5 to 18 years, like every 2 years checking it. Because for me, right, when I was hitting puberty, obviously my heart was growing thicker and being on top of it. So yeah, it's very important. And even the American, you know, like pediatric cardiology like recommends the screening every 2 years, 5 to 18, just to make sure, you know, that it is. And we're very happy for the program that screened almost like 15,000 kids. We're hoping pushing it more and more people doing it, especially like, hey, it's free, you know, so that you don't have to worry about having insurance or whatnot. That everybody should have that accessibility to have a heart screening, because you never know. And what's sad is that sometimes based on your race, based on your gender, based on your age, that you could be discriminated for not thinking that you have a heart issue. And so, you know, fighting that equity of having accessibility for everyone to have their hearts equally checked, and make sure that they're good or not.
Yeah, I know that's amazing advocacy you guys are doing on your platform. Luckily, I mean, I know, yeah, certain school districts will provide that. I believe mine did before, for encouraged all student athletes to have that screening done before continuing. And that actually kind of leads to a question that we got, which was if you should you stop exercising if you experience shortness of breath with this condition? Do you want to talk about that?
I mean, I'm not your doctor, so the thing is, present that to your doctor. If you have been diagnosed, make note of it. I think for me, it's always helpful when I make notes, and having like an ICD that's like, you know, a 24/7 monitor in a way that sometimes if something happens that I was not aware of, like, oh, my heart was skipping a beat, and journaling and then talking to my doctor and saying, hey, I'm having this when this happens. Especially like having a stress echo test will definitely see if you're, you know, oh, I'm having this shortness of breath, I'm exercising. Obviously, if you're feeling uncomfortable, I would say stop, take a break, rest. Now HCM patients are encouraged to exercise, which has been something like personally I've struggled with being told, because again, there's no cure for this condition. It's all lifestyle changes, all management. Like being told that stop, don't even like get your heart rate up, to now like, no, go outside, that's gonna help you feel like do better. And so it's been hard for me because I've had some, like I was like, okay, this summer I'm like, okay, let me go play some tennis or whatever, and I was feeling shortness of breath, I passed out, all this stuff, and then I'm telling the doctor, I'm like, it kind of like derails you. So it's a weird thing, because they're like, no, keep doing it, but then you're like, am I out of shape? Is it because I'm out of shape, or is it because I'm having symptoms from my cardiomyopathy? And like for me, it's that's not a comfortable feeling, right, to constantly put yourself in a thing of where like, oh, am I feeling my heart race really fast, or oh, I'm having shortness of breath. So I think it's best for you and your doctor, like your care team, to speak best to that of what you feel But definitely if it's becoming extreme, like stop at that moment. Like hydrate, breathe. It's kind of hard because for me, I feel like regardless if I'm breathing or whatever, like your heart will just stop on its own. I don't have no control of my heart. From me personally, where even if I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a rhythm, I'm like, even if I'm breathing, I'm like, I don't know when it's gonna stop until my heart figures out it gets its stuff in order. But yeah, I would suggest speaking to your care team and knowing personally what you think your limits are, and knowing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely take an individualized approach with your doctor and care team to understand what is best for you. Okay, well, thank you so much, Hannah. This was a great conversation. I hope for all of you guys it was informative, enlightening, and hopefully you can spread this information and the HeartCharged message with others that just through social media, just word of mouth, just because the work that they're doing is just amazing, and especially for Restart a Heart Day. We want to make sure that everyone is prepared for a cardiac emergency and hopefully preventing it ahead of time with either screenings or just talking with your healthcare professional. But thank you so much, Hannah. This has been a great conversation.
No, thank you so much for having us, like for having me, and for everybody who joined. Thank you so much, and happy Restart a Heart Day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you all. We're going to close it out now, but stay tuned for our next live event. Bye, everyone.